Hey there, gents. Chris here, and this is another quick intro for part 2 of our conversation with Toney. We are finishing up a re-air, rebroadcast, if you will, of his conversation because a lot of our newer listeners may have missed it. This was really a phenomenal conversation that we really hope that you'll be able to take advantage of listening to. Toney is an amazing guy, fantastic. Make sure to take the time to find his other episode where he actually gets to talk about himself a little bit and his journey. But this is part 2 of Toney talking about how he has very successfully been using keto and carnivore and biohacks to help and support the brain and living health of his mother and his wife.
Hello and welcome to the Keto Man's Club podcast.
We're glad you're here, where each week we talk about men's health and lifestyle.
We do so with the foundation of the ketogenic diet and lifestyle.
If you don't know what keto is, stick around and you'll find out.
The podcast will bring you real, honest fun.
Each week we strive to uncover the tips and tricks that you can use in your everyday life to maximize your overall health.
Find the clearest path to becoming the best version of yourself that you were meant to be. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Keto Man's Club podcast. This is Chris, and I'm doing a quick intro to let you know that this episode is a little bit different. We're not going to have the banter, and the three of us are not doing a before and after on the episode like we normally would, because it's a continuation of the conversation that was started in last week's episode. So if you haven't yet, please go and check out the first part of this conversation, because you will not want to miss it. Toney has an incredible story, and we just gave him free rein to share as long as he wanted and could about his working with his mother with dementia and Alzheimer's, as well as how he is using dietary changes to help and support the health and really honestly the prosperity of his wife, who has legit brain damage. And so just a really great guy, and the conversation has been really, really great. So sit back, relax. If you heard last week's episode, then you are probably chomping at the bits to get through the rest of this, so I'll let you do it. Wow, so much, and we've been commenting in our group chat that we have between the three of us hosts that this is just such good information, but the story behind it is, I hope, extremely impactful on a lot of people, because for those people who are looking down the barrel or currently in a caretaking situation for someone who has a neurodegenerative condition like Alzheimer's, dementia, or brain damage, what you're saying is that there's hope that it doesn't have to get the worst of the worst.
I think we can avoid a great deal of it if the difference between mom and dad is just diet. Because I've got their medical records. I looked at them. Going into this, they were eating the same thing. Their health records were identical. And you could chalk it up to, it's just one person, we're all different. Or you can chalk it up to, or look at it from that. I think if you're there now, if you've got the diagnosis of early onset dementia, Alzheimer's, or a diagnosis of Alzheimer's dementia, you're already 10 to 20 years into the disease. That's like growing a leg back after an amputation. I don't think we're going to be able to resolve that. The quality of their life as we chaperone them through that disease, that can be the greatest gift we can give them. And for the rest of us, because I sat in that house with my parents as I grew up, and bad eating habits are not genetic. That's something you learn. And I spent 40 years of my life eating a lot of garbage. And it matters. I look at it, I'm more than likely, if I'm lucky, I could dodge this bullet. But I engage it from the perspective that, okay, I have a finite amount of time because I was not 40 when I became obese and was running, an A1C in the mid sixes. I have the signs and symptoms of insulin resistance. That's my fight. That's what I'm doing right now is fighting my insulin resistance. And it's wonderful when you wake up in the morning, you go to the bathroom, you look in the mirror, and it's like, hey, one more skin tag has fallen off. I'm doing something right. That's what I care about. That's what I'm fighting. But I look at it as I have a finite amount of time because both of my parents went this way. I spent 40 years doing the same thing they were doing. I need to get my ducks in a row. I need to take care of my wife, and then I will, in the process, take care of myself. But if I can't, okay, I can live with that. I'm setting a foundation for my path through it to be better. And if we could just, like the guys who are in their 20s, early 30s, even some of the guys who are in their 40s and didn't get pudgy until then, or type 2 diabetic or insulin resistant until then. Yeah, I think we can push this back. I'm optimistic at pushing it back, but even, oh man, there's just so much to talk about. The concept of neuroplasticity and epigenetics, just changing environments to a better place to live, and the way the brain can remap a pathway for the brain to function. Watching that in my wife is phenomenal. I mean, it's just, I think there's hope. I'm optimistic. I think right now what we need to focus on is taking care of ourselves, obviously, but creating a foundation for those of our seniors who are going to go into this without making changes to their diets and not making those healthy changes. Or even if they are, that it's just too late and the brain has already shrunk from Alzheimer's, has already shrunk from dementia. I mean, I didn't even touch on the fact that a lot of what they're finding is that this is a glucose uptake issue, and the brain just can't metabolize glucose. It's trying. I think that's why you see a lot of people get happy when you feed them ice cream. That's more of a hormonal response. The body's going, yay, glucose, I can use this. But the brain simply can't use it, and it doesn't know that. So it keeps trying to push it. Amy Berger talked about this at KetoCon, not this year, but the year before, about how the brain, when they do autopsies on the brain, it's swimming in glucose, but it just can't use it. And that's really where the ketones come in. Our ketogenic diet is so helpful with that. I think it matters, and I think it can give them a better quality of end of life, where they're not afraid and scared all the time and emotionally destroyed by what's going on around them. I think it can help.
So, Toney, hearing all of this and everything, there was a movie that came out in the 1990s called Lorenzo's Oil. I don't know if you've ever heard of this or not. Back in the day when this came out, I actually worked at a video store and met a gentleman whose son had the disease that was referenced in this film. It was called, I'm looking at it on Wikipedia, adrenoleukodystrophy. And the idea behind it, it was a neurological disorder that ultimately there was they discovered that a long-chain fatty acid would help to basically pause the decline of their son in this movie, and this is based on a true story. And many years later, in 2003, my dad had a heart transplant, and one of the complications he had was neuropathy. And the idea behind it was actually to do, I think it was just good old extra virgin olive oil to help with that as well. So there is more to this than even what you're talking about, I think, in terms of the science behind it, of how these things, these foods and everything interact, not just for what is around our gut, but how it affects our minds and our mental capacity more than most people, I think, realize. So I am so amazed and inspired by what you have done for your mom and your wife and for many others, and talking about using social media as a tool in these groups and everything to find these different alternatives that can be beneficial for these loved ones. I mean, I'm just amazed taking all of this in over the last hour or so, what you have been through and discovered and everything.
Speaking to the neuropathy, when we started out, my mom was in the same place with peripheral neuropathy. The doctor would take one of the prick little stab pokey things for type 2 diabetes glucose testing.
Yep.
And he would prick from her finger up to where she could finally feel it. He would get to her basically her elbow pit and the side of her leg just on the outside of her knee before she could feel it. The last time we had one of those tests, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, they pricked her finger. You know, they start at the tip of your middle finger. She pulled her hand away and said, "Ow."
Wow.
That's not supposed to be possible. Yeah. Neuropathy is irreversible under traditional
She stepped on a piece of cat litter a couple of days ago, and she's like, oh, wait, and stops in the middle of the hallway, the middle of the night, and she rubs her foot on the floor, and this little piece of cat litter goes scooting across the floor, and she takes a couple little, kind of marching steps. She goes, okay, and then we just walk back to her bedroom and go through the process. Like, she could feel that. My wife and I almost fell over on the floor watching it happen, and it's not the first time we've seen it. I mean, it's amazing. And the body, there's so much the body can heal that we just write off as old age, or you can't do that. There are some things I can't heal. I can't make her eyes better. I can't get her eyes better from the 40 years as a type 2 diabetic. Her vision is wrecked. I can't get her bladder better. Oh God, that's horrible. I can't get her bladder better. That's you got to understand that my inner voice is a southern version of Cole Robinson out of Canada, the snake diet guy. I work. You don't understand how hard I work to be really good about not dropping F-bombs and such. But the bladder. There is just nothing you can do about it but find a great diaper, and we schedule around that. I can't fix that. But she has no more signs or symptoms of fatty liver disease. We've seen that with guys who have lost huge quantities of weight that had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And guys are constantly talking about it, women too, but in our group, guys are talking about that constantly. Like, yeah, I don't have any signs and symptoms of this or that. Like, it's amazing what the body can heal. And another side effect of this is that mom's on a blood thinner. If you know somebody who's in their 80s on a blood thinner, if you look at them real hard, they will bruise. My mom will bruise very lightly, and then it's gone within a couple of days. At most a couple of days. She just doesn't keep the bruises that she has, and they heal super quickly. And I think a large part of that is she is metabolically healthy, and the body isn't fighting everything else, so it can take care of itself the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
It really is just so much.
Yeah. So me being adopted, I actually don't deal with the thought that, okay, I'm going to get this from my grandpa and my that side of my family, but my grandfather and my grandmother had, I'm not sure if you'd call it, late on or early onset, because honestly, she was up there in her 70s or 80s, I think, at that point, when she had dementia, and my grandfather developed dementia and eventually Alzheimer's, and my mom became the caretaker for both of them. And so I don't fear getting it because, well, I'm not biological, but I definitely want to be cautious in general. But for my mom, I am concerned because she's now in her 70s and I'm, in my, late 30s. And, the time will come that there's things that are going to potentially happen. And so I have actually talked to my mom about the benefits of a ketogenic diet and how it can be helpful to guard against neurological things. And she tries. She's not very good at it, but she tries. Grandpa's passed quite a while ago at this point and whatnot. And seeing him go downhill, I can totally appreciate the amount of work that you have had to had to go through being your mother's caretaker, seeing that in what my mom had to deal with, the few times that I had to kind of stop in the middle of my day, whatever was going on, even if it was calling out from work, and run to my parents' house and pick my grandfather up off the floor after a fall. All of these things, I saw that, degeneration. It was tough to see. And so I'm thankful that I actually did get to be close to him during that last period of time. My mom finally moved him up to Kansas City when, which is where I was located at the time, during that last couple of years, because grandma had passed away and he no longer recognized where home was. So similar to your mom, where you had the freedom to move where you needed to, as soon as, there wasn't an acknowledgement of this is home. So it was very similar in that. And so he moved up to Kansas City from Oklahoma. And so I was able to see and be around and get to help where I could. And we had lunch every week at least and all of that.
Yeah.
So I wish I knew the things that I know now, and seeing, I'll call it the testimony that you've made of the work that the good work that you're seeing in your mom and her health. I wish I'd known that back then, because I could have tried to be an agent of change to improve that. All of that to say, what, if you could concisely say, like one or two tips that you wish you knew, going into this whole situation as a caretaker, past or potentially future, what would you tell yourself before your mom had this come up? What would you tell yourself, now that you know everything that you know, before your dad came down with Alzheimer's?
Oh man, that's an entire set of encyclopedias. And I've played this out in my head a couple of times, because this is technically the third Alzheimer's patient in my home. My grandfather was my first that I was around as a kid. My dad, with mom and me kind of helping out with that, and then now mom. I tell you what, some things are unavoidable. As you see with your mom, trying to get them to kind of, I think if you can just get them into a low carb metabolic state where they're getting healthy and they see the gains. One of the first things I give friends to help them kind of wrap their head around this is the drinking man's diet. It's like $12 on Amazon. And it's it's from the 1960s, and it's a low carbohydrate diet. And you don't have to drink if you don't want to, but it lays the groundwork for how to kind of get a lot of these things under control. And if you could just do that first step, the things that follow after that, I think they will. I've seen in my friends that I've kind of helped along with this. It helps them kind of move that needle towards keto or paleo, or even after those two, carnivore, if they feel that that's right for them. And I think that helps a great deal. And it's not intimidating. The whole book's the size of a Galaxy Note 8. I mean, it's a teeny tiny little book, but it's written in just such a friend talking to you kind of manner that it makes it easy to digest. It's not intimidating. It's not crushing you with science, and I think that helps. And this gets into I don't think you can find a caregiver. I know you can. I've seen them, but for a lot of us, I'm the bad cop because at 6'2" and 245 to 250 pounds, I fill a doorway. So if we need mom to, hey, you need to focus and get your shit together. Oh, excuse me, get everything, get it all wired. I'm the bad cop. Mel gets to be the good cop. Mel was always her favorite, anyways. But Mel gets to be the good cop, and I carry a lot of. When you're trying to figure out where they are in the disease to engage with them, it is so hard day to day. And at the beginning, when we were not ketogenic and trying to engage with mom, if you've ever seen Greeks interact as a family with their children and their parents, you'll understand the kind of, just watch My Big Fat Greek Wedding, how they interact, where they yell at each other and everybody loves each other, but they yell at each other. When those moments happen and you look back at them, you're like, I misunderstood what she was doing, and I should have encouraged that because it would have made her life better. It was just, for me, for instance, it was mom, and we had been talking about maybe going back to Denver and taking mom with us, and mom got excited, and she pulled out an atlas and wanted to go because mom loved Denver. She and dad went to Denver. That's where dad proposed to her. And so she wanted to, make a list of things to do when she was in Denver. And we got into an argument about it because I didn't understand what her thought process was, and she couldn't communicate to me. I mean, we're talking 8 years ago now, and I still carry that guilt. And it's just watch, just observe, be patient, and watch. There's at the beginning, it's so overwhelming. It's just so overwhelming because you always start out at a deficit trying to learn. One of the things that they do is they purge things they don't recognize. And my mom purged all of her medical records. I was a year and a half into taking care of mom, and I get this call from a doctor. Hey, I'm Mary's cancer doctor. We haven't heard from her in a while. I'm like, whoa, cancer? Oh yeah, she has who is this? And I explain, and I said, hold on, let me fax you all the paperwork. So I fax over all of the power of attorney and medical power of attorney to them, and he calls me back the next day, and he goes, okay, and he lays it out. Mom, which is not uncommon for women mom's age, has a low-grade leukemia. Okay, so we take her in, and we start monitoring it. He's like, I'm not upset by this. It looks good. At the 2.5-year mark, 3-year mark, he's like, yeah, her numbers keep going down from what they're, from the bad range to the good range. She's doing great. I'll see you guys in another year. And every year it just gets better and better. But it was stuff like that was catching me off guard. My mom suffered from rosacea. All of her life, all my life, she was on all kinds of medication for rosacea, creams, you name it, she was on it.
Steroids out the wazoo for that type of thing, usually.
And she was also suffering from cataracts and other vision problems because of the type 2 diabetes. And the right hand wasn't talking to the left hand. And they were giving her cortical steroids for the inflammation in her eye. And the whole time that inflammation was rosacea that had progressed into her eye. So when we were aggravating that for over a year, until again, her dermatologist calls, says, hey, I haven't seen Mary in a while. How's she doing? Who is this? Fax all the paperwork over. We get the whole conversation. We go in the next day, and it's just like, oh, her rosacea is out of control. Okay, let's do this, this, and this to get it under control. We're going to put her on an antibiotic to try and clear this up, and within a week it was gone. And now I actually wind up taking the antibiotics that we have at the house back to the pharmacy every year for them to dispose of. I have it if I need it. I never need it, and I wind up disposing of it every year because, again, the diet. She just doesn't have outbreaks. And when we deviate, it is kind of cute. When we deviate at all from the diet for any reason, every year on her birthday, Mom gets a slice of key lime pie because that was her favorite. And I know for the next week she'll be a emotional cognitive wreck, so to speak. She'll just be a little snippy, but she won't be horrible. But she'll break out with zits like a 14-year-old. It's the funniest thing you'll ever see. She'll have a zit on her. Mel thought she broke her this year. About Mom's birthday's in April. About end of the month, this zit pops up on her forehead, and she rubbed it off in the middle of the night. And Mel gets her up in the morning because Mel takes mornings. I take the midnight shift, and she just freaked out. Oh my God, she's screaming for me to come in there because she's got this blood smeared all over her forehead. And then Mel's like, oh, wait a minute. Hey, she just popped her zit. Never mind. I got an 84-year-old that once a year gets a couple of zits. As far as that goes, that's a tough life.
Yeah.
But it's those kind of things. The nitty-gritty, rough side of caregiving is the part nobody talks about. And that's the other thing, man. That's what I would tell myself. It's hard. It sucks. I've had horrible jobs. I've had tough jobs. I've dug ditches. And it's, I know what a crummy job is. And I tell you what, this is the hardest, miserable job on earth, and I would not wish it on my worst enemy. Like I said before, I just don't want anybody to go like my parents. I guess you could throw in a little bit of selfishness because if I had the choice to do it again, I'm going to take care of my family. I'm going to take care of my mom. If I could take care of my dad, I would. If I could take care of my grandfather, I would. If I could have helped my sister or my brother, I would have. There's just so much. It's hard. It's just it's the hardest thing I've ever done. And I know there's a lot of tough dudes out there. But it's your mom. And no matter how you cut it, that's your mom. And even just as a person you respect and you carry the measuring stick for how much they've lost, there's days it will tear you down. And it just sucks.
Yeah.
It's hard and we don't realize it. And the other thing is within our space and our community as men, we don't understand just how many of us are actually caregivers right now. 40 to 44%, when you dig through the Alzheimer's Association's website, of familial caregivers are men caring for their spouse. That's when you wrap your head around that, you work your life for a good retirement, you work your butt off, and you defer everything to the end of life so you can spend your golden years with your spouse. And within the first couple of years, it's undeniable that they have Alzheimer's or dementia in general. And within caregivers, amongst caregivers, and again, this is another reason why I stopped going to caregivers group. I was in my late 30s when I started taking care of my mom, and the only other men there were retired men who are angry that their retirement had been stolen by this disease. And that's hard to see. That is really hard to see. And I can tell you this toll it takes on me. I mean, in terms of our group, I've been plateaued for over a year now because of the move out here and the stress. I can't beat that. I just can't get around it right now. In a year or so, I stay within my lane. I try to stay as much carnivore as I can because I feel great when I'm on it. I like, as Alberto will tell you, my favorite candy is a caramelized onion. Oh man, that is my favorite candy. Oh God, yeah, that's.
And given the carb count, it's actually kind of candy.
Oh yeah, it absolutely is candy. I have, but it's also one of those things that I just right now as we adjust and balance, there's a bit of anxiety here just talking to y'all. I mean, I couldn't get out when I talked to Aaron at KetoCon that my mom and dad were educators, that they were professional educators. I could not articulate that. Because talking about what we do with Mom is so out of the boundary of what anybody talks about. And unless you're a psychiatrist like Dr. Eads or a professional nutritionist with a master's degree like Amy Berger or Dr. Bredesen, who are talking about caring for other people with the disease, those of us who are doing it, we don't talk about it. Especially if we roll carnivore, we don't talk about it because it's a scary thing for us to put our loved ones at risk of something happening to them. So I carry that anxiety. Gets back to the same thing. I don't want anybody to die like my parents. But I just that little Cole Robinson voice inside of me just gets louder and louder every day. Saying, you need to do something about it. Get off your butt and do something about it. And that is not even as polite as inside my head. Because somebody needs to talk about it. Because the people who are pushing against this, and I talk nutrition a lot when I was in some of these groups. I would push nutrition as a foundation first. And hey, you need to get them healthy. You got to get them physically healthy. And you can't do it. Salt will kill them instantly, and the ketogenic diet is going to kill you. Bacon's bad for you. They're going to have a heart attack and die. And it's like, my mom eats 3 strips of bacon and 3 eggs every single morning. I cannot get her cholesterol, her total cholesterol, any higher. And I wish to heaven I could get her cholesterol to 300. We're total cholesterol, we're plateaued at about 247, and I can't get it any higher. She's pretty much hit homeostasis, and I can't get it any higher. And the higher her cholesterol gets, the better her cognition gets. But dietary cholesterol plays such a low role in total cholesterol now, or that we know now, that I just can't get it above that. I wish I could.
Yeah,
but. And I'm happy with where she's at because when she was below 200 with her total cholesterol, she just babbled incoherently. And as we get her kind of in this stable space now, where her cholesterol is elevated above 200, again, words are coming back. She's saying things, fully ambulatory, strong. But yeah, people are resistant. And again, when you look at their profile pictures of them and their family, you can see why they're resistant to this change because they're obese type 2 diabetics also. And that just makes it even harder for them to deal with their parents because then they have to deal with their own mortality. It's like going to the hospital. Nobody likes to go visit anybody in the hospital because you're reminded of your own mortality. And you're reminded of that every single day when you work with an Alzheimer's patient, especially when it's a family member. My wife and I joke, it's like at the end of every day, we fist bump death at the door. Not today, bro. See you tomorrow. And every day we get through the day, it's a blessing. It's awesome. But it's yeah. It's so much.
Just so hard. Yeah.
You would think the weight of all out your ability to talk about you guys are awesome. They're a much better outlook on life.
Listen. The only reason we're a cute couple is because of Mel. If it was just me, not even happening. Big furry Greek dude, no hair on the head, just a beard. It's scary. Not adorable.
Yeah. Well, we are absolutely blessed to get to have you here tonight, and your story's not over. Honestly, there's about 1 million questions that I would love to ask about you specifically on your journey, because that's what we largely do. But we've been going now for an hour and a half, and
half hours. Or hour and a half. I don't know.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'll say it that way. It's been a minute, and that we got a slow start, which is why less time recorded. But we've got it over an hour and a half of recorded audio, and I don't want to take too much more of your time. Your routine that you have with your mom and,
I'm clear till
and your wife.
That's
okay.
I don't want to keep you guys up. I don't have to do anything till midnight. Midnight, we change. We go to the bathroom and we change. So I don't have to do anything till midnight. This is my work time.
Okay.
I'm on East Coast time, so that's 1 o'clock for me. I'm old. We can't be hanging out.
But we'll just probably plan on having you on again talking about recent developments and your story, more about your story and your successes that you're seeing personally. You dipped into some of them, but I'd love to hear more specifics about that. And we were just talking in our group chat once again that Jim has to get to KetoCon. He's like, I am missing out on meeting all of these awesome people, and so that would be. I'm going to throw this out there. Again, I think this is going to come out before the pricing goes up. If you can make it before the end of September, get your tickets to KetoCon. KetoCon, the pricing is at half, $150 for the 3-day weekend. We want to meet you. We want to hear your stories, and that's what it's all about. It's about meeting people in the ketogenic family and getting to hang out with them. Oh, and there's some science and some really cool talks that you get to hear too. And so that's my little plug for KetoCon, and that has nothing to do with the fact that I work with the Keto Evangelist team. So that being said, Toney, thank you so much for coming. Jim, Alberto, do you have any other parting shots before I cut him completely loose?
Just one last.
Yeah.
If you could fill that.
Hang on. The reason why White Christmas is still on Netflix is that the one? So Alzheimer's is kind of like having a little kid, like a 3 or 4 year old. My mom's favorite movie of all time, right now, is White Christmas. We're probably the sole reason it's still on Netflix. It's a minimum of 3 times a week that she watches that movie. She sings along to every song in it. It's terrible. She's out of key. The cats won't even come near her. She is so happy singing along to White Christmas and every song in the movie, but it is literally her Frozen. It is her Moana. Mm-hmm. I understand parents who are like, I don't want to watch Frozen ever again. If it's just, you turn that movie on and mom lights up like a light bulb, and it's you can't not be happy watching her watch White Christmas. You might want to put earplugs in, but she is so happy watching that movie.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I bet her vocabulary is able to hang out with that movie.
Yes.
And that's the music therapy thing.
Absolutely.
Tie in, because music has been tied into a lot of that, reconnecting the dots. And if you put lyrics or if you put words to tune as a kid, it helps with memory and things like that. So, that's really cool to see that, but I'm sure that it bleeds over into everything else. So that's so very cool. Jim, any parting shots from you?
I just appreciate what you said towards the end, Toney, about, kind of out of the comfort zone and everything. And I've said it multiple times, both in the group and on the podcast. When this group got created back in April 2017, I had no idea that we would get to this point. This was not even in any imagination that I could have ever dreamed of. And so to be hearing your family story and everything, and that you feel comfortable in telling this, because I know this is not easy at all. I mean, you can smile and laugh and everything, but there are moments where it is, as you said, it's very tough to live through. And so I'm just grateful that you trust us and appreciate what the group has been able to provide, that you're willing to share all of this, because as you talked about social media and the people who are in those groups that deal with family members and different struggles and whatnot, this is another platform for people to get that information. And you've made a great contribution. So I really genuinely appreciate that.
Thank y'all. I was really humbled when Alberto said, "Hey, you can take as much time as you need." I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing. Because I
will say I have a friend that is Greek also, and you definitely kind of fit in the same timeline of telling a story. So it is definitely something.
Our minds are a living embodiment of a Tarantino movie. That is the only way I can explain it.
That's and given having seen Once a Time in Hollywood, I would agree with that.
That movie was
it was very good, but it was this meandering little
yes.
No spoilers.
No. It's 100% Quentin Tarantino. Yes. It's absolutely quintessential in all aspects, and ends with a wonderful bang, and then you go, "What happened?"
and about halfway to the car, you realize, "Oh, wait a minute." Oh, yeah. I tell you what, though, this is one thing I was not expecting. It's not a spoiler. I was not expecting the length of that movie, and I ran out of Dukes about halfway through that movie. Double your keto snack.
Start a little too late in the evening.
We had an early morning caregiver on Tuesdays, and there are half price movies on Tuesdays. So we saw the first one in the morning, and it's like almost Endgame long. So double your Dukes and bring a full liter of water.
Yep. Okay. Well, Toney, thank you so much for coming. I'm not even going to do plugs or anything. I'm going to let our outro do that. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all so much for just letting me tell Mom's story.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining us for the Keto Man's Club podcast. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Would you help us spread the word about the Keto Man's Club by sharing with your friends and family? We're available on all podcast platforms, so just search for Keto Man's Club and you'll find us. If you would like to connect with us, you can do so a number of ways. Our web address leads to our Facebook group, theketomansclub.com. That's TheKetoMansClub.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at Keto Man's Club Podcast. Lastly, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out via email to ketomansclubpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to hanging out with you again next week.